sound production during feeding by Icelandic herring-eating killer whales. What we know about Icelandic killer whales is that they eat herring and they use taste labs to hunt them, and they sometimes help them with a specific contact call, which is the herding call. But not much more is known about the sound production during feeding of these killer whales. And also, we don't really know how they use echolocation, if it's used only for navigating, orientation, or maybe to search the prey, or just when they're feeding. So this is what this study aimed to better understand. The data were collected in Vestmannaeyjar archipelago, where killer whales come to feed on herring during the summer. And we used DTECs that were deployed during July of 2009 and 2021. First, we looked at possible echolocation patterns dividing the recordings in 5-minute bins, and we found 226 of them to contain echolocation clicks. Of those, 91% were either containing also a taste lab, or were found to be immediately before the ones that were containing a taste lab, showing then that the echolocation is probably mostly used where they are feeding, so in a feeding context. Then we looked at possible feeding event composition, analyzing the 1 minute after the taste lab and 1 minute before. And we searched for possible sounds that may occur around the taste lab. And we found almost 87% of them to be followed by a buzz, which linked this sound as well to a feeding context. At the end of some feeding event, we found a new type of sound, which we call the prey handling sound, which is the sound of the herring being sucked in by the killer whale. And it has a low occurrence because it is a really faint sound, which is recorded by the DTEC just sometimes, not all the times. And then only in 2021 we found the herding call to precede the taste lab for almost 23.5% of the time. But we find it also with a high variation in its usage between individuals, so we don't really know how it's used or when. Then we looked at pause duration between the click train and the taste lab, and we found in both years this duration to have a mean that never was more than a second. And this probably means that they echolocate until the last second before using the taste lab to have a more precise location of the herring. We also looked at the pause duration between the herding call and the taste lab, finding it to never last more than a second, confirming previous studies which connect this type of call with the taste lab, so with a feeding event. Then we looked at possible day or night differences, calculating the duration of either day or night and the number of taste labs, so feeding events that were happening either at day or night. But we found no feeding event to happen during the night. This may be due to the fact that we don't have not enough data of nighttime recording, but it also may also be the consequence of the fact that they avoid hunting during the night because the herring are more dispersed at night and they are closer to the bottom. And also it may be the consequence of the daytime lasting way longer than the nighttime during the Icelandic summer. To conclude, we found a clear structure of the feeding event composition in a sound-wise talking. And we also find it, though, to have a slight variation of the components between the feeding events, having just the click train, the pause, and the taste lab to be there for 100% of the times. Thank you. I would like to thank Icelandic Orca Project and everybody who helped me collect the data for this research.